On my daughter's 10th birthday, I learned my entire family flew to Miami without a word. I said, "You all left town today?" My dad answered, "Didn't feel like dealing with a problem child." I replied, "Great, your retirement fund just lost its sponsor." They brushed it off. 9 days later, their group chat exploded, and my dad was begging me to talk. My daughter's 10th birthday should have been pure magic, a day filled with joy and celebration. Instead, it became the brutal turning point where I finally saw my family for what they truly were. Not people who loved me, but people who simply saw me as a resource. And that day, they tried to steal the last shred of my hope. I'd been watching that clock since 6 a.m., pouring every ounce of myself into making it special. Ellie was turning 10 double digits, a milestone she'd been talking about since summer, counting down the days like it was Christmas itself. The night before, I'd blown up 30 balloons, taping them to the ceiling, but that cheap tape just wouldn't hold. By morning, half of them drooped towards the floor like deflated dreams. But Ellie, she didn't care. She woke up screaming with pure delight, her hair wild, tearing down the hall shouting, "I'm 10!" She hugged me so tight I nearly dropped the stack of pancakes I'd made. There was no big party, not a real one anyway. It was just me and her like it had always been. But I'd transformed our kitchen into a celebration zone. Streamers, confetti, a scavenger hunt that led her, giddy and breathless, all around the house. Her ultimate prize, a bright pink cruiser bike, complete with a white basket, streamers dancing on the handlebars, and a bell she wouldn't stop ringing for the next hour. When she saw it, her eyes welled up. She cried, happy tears streaming down her face. Then she did something that just broke my heart a little, even as it melted it. She made tiny party hats. For everyone. I'm not kidding. Glitter paper glued on stickers, and in her sweet, crooked handwriting she wrote, "Grandma, Grandpa, Auntie Bree, and Mom." She even taped toothpicks to them so they'd stand tall and proud. She laid them out so carefully on the table, so certain they'd show up. "Do you think they'll get here before cake?" she'd asked, her voice brimming with a faith in them I'd long lost. She believed in them more than I ever could. I checked my phone every 10 minutes, pretending I wasn't. Nothing. No texts, no messages in the family group chat. I'd posted pictures of Ellie's morning, her opening presents, riding her bike, making silly faces. Still nothing. Not even a thumbs up. Not even from Bree, my sister, who usually reacted to everything I posted like it was her second job. By noon, the quiet hum of hope in my chest had dwindled to a dull ache. Gave up. I scrolled through Instagram just out of muscle memory, while Ellie happily chalked, "Happy 10th birthday to me," across our sidewalk. And that's when I saw it. A boomerang from my sister, Bree at the airport, drink in hand. Then a group photo. My mom, my dad, Bree, her kids, even Aunt Mara. All of them, beaming, throwing peace signs, in front of a welcome to Miami mural. They were already there. My stomach dropped. I kept watching the stories, a morbid fascination taking over. Palm trees, beach chairs, a lunch spread with lobster tails and margaritas. The caption read, "Family trip, first time all together in years." I stared at my screen until it dimmed, the battery saver kicking in, mirroring the emptiness I felt inside. Not one of them had said a word, not a single mention. Ellie's 10th birthday, and they'd flown out of state that very morning. Cold rage settled in. I left a comment under Bree's story, trying to keep my voice even. "You all left town today?" No one replied. Not right away. I waited, fed Ellie lunch, and then, just the two of us, we cut the cake. She asked if we should wait for the candles. I looked at her hopeful face, then told her no. We lit them anyway. An hour later my phone buzzed. My dad in the group chat. "Didn't feel like babysitting a problem child." The words felt like a punch to the gut. It didn't even feel real. I didn't ask what he meant. He knew. Ellie's high energy, her boundless curiosity, her inability to sit quietly in a corner like Bree's perfectly behaved kids. She asks a million questions, talks endlessly about the things she loves. I used to tell myself they just didn't understand her. Now I knew the truth. They just didn't care. By the way, if you're still with me, if this story is hitting home, make sure to hit that subscribe button. More unbelievable stories are coming, and you won't want to miss them. My fingers flew across the screen, a new kind of clarity guiding them. "Perfect," I wrote back. "Because your retirement fund just lost its sponsor." And I meant it, every single word. For the past 5 years, every month I'd been sending sending them money, not because they asked, but because I couldn't bear the thought of them struggling. Medical bills, groceries, electricity, whatever they needed. My mom had always said they couldn't make it without me, and I, like an idiot, had believed her. They laughed it off. Bree sent one of those stupid laughing emojis. My dad called me dramatic. My mom chimed in. Don't be like this, Amanda. We just needed a break. Not one apology. Not a single acknowledgement of the pain they'd caused. 9 days later, I woke up to 22 messages, missed calls, voicemails. The group chat was on fire. My dad's first message read, Amanda, please, can we talk? Because now the rent was late. The fridge was empty, and I wasn't sending anything anymore. I didn't answer. It wasn't a plan. It wasn't a strategy. I just had nothing left to give. For the first time, I wasn't scrambling to smooth things over, or fix what they broke, or explain why their words hurt. I just stood in my kitchen, coffee in hand, watching my phone light up. 22 notifications, all from them. My dad started it. Can we talk? Then 3 missed calls, a voicemail. My mom jumped in, her messages longer, soaked in guilt. We didn't mean it like that. The trip was already booked months ago. A whole paragraph about rising grocery costs, about how retirement hadn't gone as planned. Vague phrases, 1,000 excuses, but not one actual apology. Not one word about Ellie. The most striking thing was how quickly the tone had shifted, from dismissive to desperate. 9 days ago, I was the dramatic one. Now they were acting like this was all a big misunderstanding. But nothing was misunderstood. I'd been footing their bills for years. Rent, utilities, medication. They needed it, and I gave it without question because they were family. I believed that someday they'd return the favor, not with money, but with time, effort, love. Turns out, they couldn't even give that to a 10-year-old on her birthday. I muted the group chat. I took Ellie out for ice cream right in the middle of a school day because I could. She got bubblegum flavor with sprinkles, making the cashier laugh by telling him it was still her birthday week. She made everything feel lighter, effortlessly. That night, after she was asleep, I finally listened to the voicemails. My dad's voice was low, stiff. He said things had been stressful, that he didn't mean the comment about Ellie. He was just overwhelmed and things had come out wrong. Then a pause. We're counting on you this month. We thought the deposit would hit Friday, but it didn't. Can you help us out again? My mom's voice was shakier. She claimed she didn't know I was still so sensitive. The Miami trip was a once-in-a-lifetime thing. Bree had insisted they go. She ended with, you know, we love you, right? Even when we don't say it, right? But it wasn't about how they said it. It was about how they never showed it. The next morning, Bree texted, called me unnecessarily cold, said our parents were older now, that I knew how hard things had been, that cutting them off financially, without warning, was cruel. I didn't argue. I didn't defend myself. I just wrote back, I didn't cut them off without warning. They warned me. She left me on read. 2 days passed. Another message from my dad. Please call me. Just 5 minutes. I ignored it. I wasn't trying to make a point. I was just living my life, something I hadn't done without a heavy weight of guilt in years. That Saturday, Ellie asked if we could take a little trip. I opened my laptop and let her pick. She chose a cabin by a lake, paddle boats, fire pits, hammocks. I booked it right then, with the money I usually sent from my mom's prescriptions. A small ache, a familiar twinge of guilt, flickered in my chest. Then it was gone. The morning we left, Bree posted a photo on Facebook. It was my parents' fridge. Empty shelves, a single carton of eggs, a bottle of ketchup. The caption, "This is what happens when you raise ungrateful children." I stared at it, frozen, for a full minute. Then I closed the app, zipped up Ellie's bag. Grab your stuffed bear, sweetie. Let's go. Let them feel what I'd been holding for 10 years. Let them sit in that silence. The one they'd created every time they skipped her recital, ignored her birthdays, forgot her name on Christmas cards. Because this time I wasn't coming to fix it. The cabin was a little rough around the edges. Old wood paneling, a squeaky screen door, mismatched dishes that looked like they came from 5 different yard sales. But to Ellie it was a dream. The second we arrived, she She ran to the dock, sneakers in one hand, bear in the other. She pointed at the water, shouting, "This is the best vacation ever." She didn't even ask for Wi-Fi. We fished or tried to. She tangled the line so badly I had to cut it 3 times. We roasted marshmallows until they caught fire and turned black. We stayed up late playing board games. And on the second night, watching the stars through the skylight, she asked if the moon ever got lonely. That one hit me deep. That trip cost about the same as one of my mom's prescriptions. And for the first time I didn't feel bad about that. I didn't feel like I was stealing something from someone else to give to Ellie. This felt like mine to give, my time, my energy, my money, and hers to receive, not something I needed to justify or apologize for. By the time we got back Sunday night, I was lighter, plumbing new depths of peace, ready for whatever came next. I turned on my phone and it almost overheated. A flood of notifications, missed calls from both parents, 8 texts from Bree, 2 voicemails, a new group chat titled Family Emergency. I didn't open any of it. Instead, I helped Ellie unpack, ran her a warm bath, and tucked her in early. Then I made myself a cup of tea and sat on the couch, my phone buzzing and chiming in my lap. I just watched them build up, one after another, like a storm I'd finally decided to let pass without running for cover. Eventually, I listened to the voicemails. My dad's voice was low and stiff again. He said they were behind on rent, no groceries. He hated to do this, but needed a little help. Said I was being emotional and letting things get out of hand. My mom's was more dramatic. She talked about how they didn't ask to be old, how hard it was on Social Security. She called the Miami trip a mistake, said it wasn't what it looked like, claimed they didn't realize how much Ellie was looking forward to them coming that day. Then she pivoted, saying Bree was overwhelmed too, and that I was being unfair to the whole family. Not once did she say sorry. The next morning, an email from Ellie's school, a summer enrichment program, robotics, music, creative writing, swim lessons, all things I couldn't have afforded before. I signed her up for everything. Then I added a trip to Yosemite in July. Ellie once told me she wanted to see a real mountain, not the kind on TV. So I made it happen. That same afternoon, Bree called. I let it ring. She texted right after, "I can't believe what you're doing. Mom and Dad are asking me for help now. Utilities are due. You're forcing everyone into a bad spot." I didn't even respond. A few hours later, another message. "It's just sad. All this money being wasted on one kid while the rest of the family suffers." I sat with that sentence for a long time. Wasted on one kid. That's what they thought. As if the money I spent on Ellie wasn't just my right, but my deepest joy. They didn't see me giving my daughter a better life. They saw me hoarding what they believed should have been theirs by default. That night, I bought Ellie the telescope she'd been eyeing for months, posted a photo of her using it in the backyard on my private Facebook story. Just a moment, just this. Bree must have seen it somehow because that night she messaged me again. It must be nice to play single mom with a trust fund. And then, real families stick together. I didn't feel angry, just profoundly tired, 'cause I finally saw it clearly. None of this had ever been about love, or Ellie, or support. It was about control, about what they thought they were owed. To them, I was never truly a daughter, just a resource. And now that resource had dried up. They weren't worried about losing me. They were panicking because they'd lost the money. It started the same way everything else had. Quiet, a little unsettling, and then suddenly too much. April had just started, and Ellie was deep into her obsession with Saturn. Every night we'd go outside, and she'd try to find it with her telescope, even though it wasn't visible half the time. She'd just sit there, wrapped in a blanket, pointing at different stars like she already lived up there. I think she liked the quiet as much as I did. I'd gotten used to checking my phone only once or twice a day. No alerts from the group chat anymore. I hadn't blocked everyone yet, but I'd stopped pretending I was interested in anything they had to say, until the school called. It was the front office secretary, friendly, but her tone shifted when she confirmed who I was. Someone had called, claiming to be Ellie's grandmother, saying she was coming to pick her up early for a surprise lunch. She gave Ellie's full name, her teacher's name, even mentioned she liked pizza. The only thing that stopped the secretary from releasing her was that Ellie wasn't listed for pickup by anyone but me and 2 close friends I'd put down for emergencies. They didn't say it, but I could tell it shook them. Someone outside the approved list trying to extract a child without parental notification. They flagged it, said they'd notify the district. I sat there for 5 minutes, staring at my coffee, feeling this weird hot tremor in my chest. They'd actually tried it. They'd crossed a line I didn't think they ever would. Not physically, but emotionally, trying to insert themselves into my daughter's life after humiliating her, then pretending it was all a misunderstanding. I drove to the school that afternoon, asked to tighten the pickup list. No one but me. I gave them new emergency contacts, changed passwords, and signed a form that would flag any future attempts by extended family. When I left, I sat in my car, locked the doors, and exhaled so slowly it felt like I'd been holding that breath since Ellie was born. Later that night I got the voicemail, my mom trying to sound wounded. She'd heard I'd blocked them from picking Ellie up. "It wasn't an abduction," she cried. "No one was trying to steal her. I just wanted to surprise her. She's our granddaughter, Amanda. This isn't fair." No apology, no acknowledgement of Ellie's birthday, just her usual trick, making me out to be the one overreacting so she wouldn't have to feel bad. I blocked her number. I thought that would be the end of it. But then, a week later, something arrived in the mail. A real envelope, thick paper, legal letterhead, from a law office I didn't recognize. My first thought was medical debt or insurance, but when I opened it I actually laughed. They were trying to pull something I never saw coming. The letter explained, carefully, vaguely, that I had a documented history of ongoing financial contribution to my parents, which had created a pattern of mutual understanding. Based on this previous support, I had been named as a financial proxy in an older estate plan they'd apparently drawn up years ago. Now they wanted to reaffirm the terms. The lawyer suggested a brief conversation to discuss how to proceed. They were trying to make it legal, to use my past generosity as leverage, to trap me in it. I called the lawyer, told him who I was. He sounded immediately uncomfortable. I asked if my parents had told him why I'd stopped sending money. He mumbled that they hadn't offered much detail, only that I was their primary support system. I told him I was no longer anything of the sort, that this was manipulation. He didn't argue, he just said he'd update the file. And that's when something finally shifted for me. All those years I'd felt guilty, like I owed them for things that were never actually given, like helping them was some invisible deal I'd signed as a kid and couldn't break. But when they pulled a lawyer into it, when they tried to wrap my guilt in paperwork, I didn't feel guilty anymore. Felt angry, not the kind that burns quick and fades, the cold kind, the kind that makes things crystal clear. They weren't just trying to guilt me, they were trying to own me. Meanwhile, Ellie was thriving. She was signed up for summer programs, practicing basic coding with her little robot from the library, and had a notebook full of space facts she planned to read me before bed every night. She was curious, loud, wild, exactly who she was meant to be, and I had no intention of letting anyone try to manage her into being easier. The next week, I took a photo of her next to the telescope, posted it on my friend's only story, captioned it. She asked me how far Saturn is. I told her, not as far as some people pretend love can stretch. An hour later, Bree sent a new message, a long one, about how I was making this harder than it needed to be. How our parents were falling apart. How I'd made my point, but maybe now it was time to be the bigger person. I didn't answer, I just blocked her too, because they could all fall apart if they wanted to. I wasn't the glue anymore. By summer, it felt like I was living in a different universe from them. My days were full in a way they never had been before. Not loud or flashy, just full. Ellie and I had routines that belonged only to us now. Saturday mornings at the library, pancakes on Sundays, weeknights planning imaginary trips with old maps and sticky notes. I wasn't rushing through life anymore, constantly calculating what I could afford to send, what expense I could delay for myself so someone else wouldn't be uncomfortable. Their world. I only knew what leaked out. A cousin mentioned my parents' AC had broken, and they were arguing with the landlord instead of just paying for the repair like they used to. A neighbor told me my mom was asking around about cheaper grocery stores. Someone else said Bree's kids were suddenly transferring schools. Nothing catastrophic, just inconvenient, just uncomfortable, the kind of discomfort I'd been quietly absorbing for years. Ellie and I went to Yosemite in July. She kept stopping on the trail to look at rocks like they were museum exhibits. She said the mountains felt older than everything, and asked if they remembered things. I took a picture of her holding a weird, jagged stone like it was gold. We printed it when we got home and taped it to the fridge. Next to it went a postcard we mailed to ourselves. That became our thing after that birthday. Wherever we went, we sent ourselves proof we were there. The silence from my family stretched on until August. That's when Bree showed up at my door. No warning, no text, just her, standing there with a bag of old books and a box of DVDs, like she was dropping off donations. Ellie was inside, and I stepped out onto the porch, closing the door behind me without even thinking. Bree talked fast, about finding these things cleaning out her garage, how Ellie might like them, how Mom wasn't sleeping well, how Dad had been really quiet lately. She said it all like she was reporting the weather. Then she shifted. She said the family felt broken, that things had gone too far, that maybe I'd made my point, and it was time to stop holding grudges. She said it was hurting everyone, that Mom cried a lot, that Dad felt ashamed having to ask other people for help. I told her calmly that I wasn't holding a grudge. I was just not participating anymore. She didn't like that answer. She said I was being stubborn, that Ellie was getting spoiled, that all these trips and activities were unnecessary, that I was rubbing it in, that it wasn't fair for one child to get so much while the rest of the family struggled. I realized then she wasn't there as a sister. She was a messenger, negotiator. She wasn't asking me to reconnect. She was asking me to resume payments. Before she left, she said something she clearly thought would land hard. "It's really sad, Amanda, destroying a family over one birthday." I didn't correct her. I didn't explain. I just told her to take the box with her, because it wasn't about the birthday. It was about what the birthday exposed. That they could leave without a word. That they could mock my child. That they could laugh when I finally said no. That the only thing tying us together had been money, and the second it disappeared, so did whatever version of love they claimed to have. September came, and Ellie and I took a train trip. She wanted to ride one just to see what it felt like. We watched the scenery blur past, shared snacks, and she leaned her head on my shoulder and said this had been the best year of her life. I didn't post about it publicly. I didn't need to. I knew they'd hear about it anyway. They always did. Every trip, every class, every small upgrade in our life irritated them more than silence ever could. They watched from a distance, counted what I spent, measured what they lost. And for the first time, I didn't feel the pull to fix it. It's been almost a year now. Ellie turned 11 last week. This time, there were no glitter party hats waiting for people who wouldn't show. No second guessing what to tell her when the doorbell didn't ring. No quiet checking of my phone every hour, hoping someone from the family would remember or pretend to care. Just me and her, and a plan she helped make herself. We spent the day at a planetarium 2 hours away. She'd been talking about it for months. She walked through the exhibits like she owned the place, asked every volunteer about black holes, galaxies, and the weight of Saturn's rings. She took a picture with a giant inflatable astronaut and picked out a plush moon at the gift shop that she's now sleeping with. On the way home, she looked out the window and said, "It was perfect." That was all I needed to hear. There wasn't a single message from my parents. Not from Bree either. Not even one of those vague last-minute hope you had a nice day texts that usually followed the silence. Their way of pretending it was all a harmless oversight. I guess they finally realized I wasn't interested in crumbs anymore. But they're still watching. I know that much. Every once in a while I get tagged in something random by an extended cousin or a family friend I never got around to unfollowing. Little things. Bree posting a quote about bridges burned by pride, or my mom commenting on a memory photo with some poetic nonsense like, when families still held each other close. I even saw a post once, a blurry scan of a utility bill with a caption, "Trying to survive in a world that forgot how to care." It's theatrical, like they've cast themselves in a tragedy that never happened. And that's what finally opened my eyes. I used to think cutting them off was this massive, life-altering decision, like I had to be 100% sure before I did it. Like I needed a clean reason, proof that I wasn't just being emotional. But the truth is, when I finally stopped giving, not just money but access, attention, explanations, they didn't collapse. They performed. They just shifted into guilt mode, tried to keep their grip on me through shame, not love. They thought silence was my move, and theirs was the counter. But the silence was just the end of the game. And now, with that silence stretching out across nearly a year, I've come to this strange, peaceful truth. They were never really family. They were just people I happened to be related to. People who taught me that love was transactional, and that approval had to be earned with sacrifice. The only reason they kept me around was was because I gave them something, and once I stopped they disappeared. No one fought to fix anything. No one showed up. They didn't send a card to Ellie or try to rebuild what they shattered. They only wanted the money, the help, the control, and when I stopped letting them take those things, they didn't know how to exist in my life anymore. Ellie, on the other hand, has never looked more alive. She's building solar system models, asking about enrolling in a coding camp, planning our next road trip with a paper map she keeps folded in her backpack. Every week she writes little missions for us to complete. Stargazing, trying a food we've never eaten, learning a fact about a new country. She's not distracted by the absence of people who never really saw her, and I'm not either. Sometimes I think about how long I kept trying, how I stretched myself thin to keep a version of peace that only worked for them, how I twisted myself into the good daughter role, even when it cost me sleep, time, money, and pieces of myself I'll never get back. They say money changes people, but I don't think that's true. I think money reveals them, and when the money ran out, what was left behind wasn't family. It was rot dressed up in guilt and nostalgia, in fake laughter and crocodile tears, in posts about what used to be written by people who didn't show up when it counted. But I showed up, for Ellie, for myself, finally, and I'll never go back. It's a heavy story, I know, but it really made me wonder, have any of you ever had to completely redefine what family means in your own life? Tell me your thoughts in the comments below. I really want to hear what you think.